actually heard about Enshrouded back when Helldivers 2 and Palworld was being hyped up. I thought that the game looked like a typical survival game, but with foggy areas and dwarves? Yeah, I couldn't get over how tiny the characters' legs were, especially since Enshrouded's cover art showed characters with normal body proportions. And even when I got into the game, it still distracted me since I felt like I was playing as a hobbit. But despite that, I thought that the game was pretty fun. Enshrouded starts off with a cutscene that talks about how the deadly fog that surrounds the game's environment came to be. A wanderer went into a place called Embervale and gave its people a gift, an elixir that sparked greed amongst everyone. It caused so much chaos that they started fighting each other and digging wells just to find more of it. The elixir wells ended up being a curse because a fog known as the Shroud emerged and started to spread throughout the land, devouring everything around it. This is when humans and ancients decided to forge the Flameborn, the character that you play as. I honestly didn't know what that last part meant, but I guess there was another sentient being that existed with humans called, the Ancients. And since they were all dying, they made a half-human, half-ancient person called the Flameborn as a last resort to keep their race alive. So the game starts with you waking up as that Flameborn in a post-apocalyptic fantasy world. I assume that the in-game lore dives into that stuff through notes, but I wasn't very interested in the story. I just knew that this game seemed like a fun, realistic version of Minecraft set in a world that has poisonous fog. And that's basically what the game's like. Enshrouded is a survival game where you can craft, build, and explore. The reason why I compared it to Minecraft is because you can change the landscape and practically build anywhere. And the reason why I say it's a realistic version of it is because of your stamina regeneration. That's the only thing that really limits you from overmining everything. And it was even the cause of a lot of my deaths while I was exploring, mostly because enemies would kill me before I regained enough stamina. But what's cool is that you can eat food that gives you various buffs, which help increase your meter and regen speed. Leveling up lets you invest in skills that help with that too, so it becomes less of an issue as you play more of the game. I do like that the game lets you build lots of different structures and decorations though. It's just that mechanic was wasted on me for most of my playthrough, because I had no idea how to properly do it. I was overwhelmed by the menu, so I accidentally dug holes on the ground, and then I couldn't figure out how to make a roof, so I built a box with windows and a door that didn't fit properly. It was nothing special, but I called it home. I managed to build a roof eventually though. It took me over an hour since I wanted to extend my house, but hey, I'd say it was worth it. Apart from building, I didn't really like the crafting menu of the game since I thought it was confusing to navigate through, because the object icons were small, and their placement was weird. Like because of the UI, I didn't know that I could craft certain things like better armor for an embarrassing amount of hours. But then it got reworked in the Back to the Shroud update, and it became so much better. I could finally see everything. Since building and terraforming was complicated for me in the beginning of the game, I spent most of my time exploring Enshrouded's massive world. It was addicting to glide and run around the map since I never knew if I would find a bandit camp, an abandoned house, or a tomb. And going into all of it was exciting since they almost always contained treasure chests. The loot wasn't always good, but it still felt nice to be rewarded. If I didn't know where to go next, I would just follow quests that I've acquired in my journal, or even go to undiscovered points of interest on my map. The only real limits are higher level areas, both in normal parts of the map and in shrouded places. Parts of the game's world are covered in poisonous fog, but that doesn't mean you die right away when you're in it. A timer starts counting down as soon as you step into the shroud, so you only have a few minutes before the fog really kills you. Once you find a way out, that timer is instantly reset. So yeah, this makes each run quite intense if you don't know where you're going. It doesn't help that the shroud is filled with dangerous enemies, so you'll have to fight and keep an eye on the timer as well. On the bright side, you only lose a few of the items that you were carrying when you die, and you can easily go back to the same spot to recover them too. assuming that your closest fast travel point isn't too far away. I did my best to set up flame altars when I felt like I was going to go to risky places. The altars are used to build bases, but since I already had a house, I just set them up every time I needed a fast travel point. Apart from being able to parry attacks, I thought that the combat was basic, but I never thought it felt tiring throughout my 24-hour playthrough. You can use various weapons, from swords, bows, and a magic staff. I personally used a powerful axe for most of the game because it was my best melee weapon at the time, but I like to swap to the bow or use magic whenever I wanted to strategically defeat enemies that were far away. At first I thought that the game was difficult since I kept dying, but it was actually quite fair. I mostly died because of my own mistakes, whether it was from being impatient or from persistently fighting higher level enemies. But just like the stamina system and everything else in the game, it gets easier the more you level up, especially when you invest more points into the skill tree. You'll be able to increase your damage and get all kinds of buffs. There are even classes that benefit multiplayer too, like healers and tanks. But I didn't invest in any of that since I was playing Enshrouded by myself. I didn't know anyone else who wanted to play it, but I imagined that the game's co-op feature would make the experience even more fun, especially since you can play with up to 16 players. And I'd say that having a helping hand would make building things much faster. Overall, I thought that the early access version of Enshrouded was really good. I didn't expect to like this game as much as I did, but it really grew on me. There's still so much to see and explore in the game though, so I don't even know what I'm going to find next. I still discovered new things even when I played bits of it on my stream the other day. It makes me wonder what the game's going to be like once it fully releases. So yeah, if you want to play a survival game with great building mechanics, tons of exploration, and a co-op option, then I recommend Enshrouded. It's currently available on Steam. Let me know what you thought about the video, and like and subscribe if you liked my content. Thank you to my patrons at Patreon for supporting my channel. Oh yeah, I updated my patron tiers at Patreon recently, and I've included free posts that show how I made my new thumbnail art, as well as my banner. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could check it out. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.